Welcome to this Validator members mini masterclass in confidence in validation. We're going to go through a number of areas regarding confidence and validation. As you may or may not know, if you're new to it, you might not feel very confident at the moment because you're new, or if you've done a few but you still feel that anxiety and overwhelm from validation, or your team might be feeling it, so that you're actually reflecting back what they're putting out regarding their confidence. So this session is to try and give you some tips and tools to focus on your own confidence, as well as assisting others with their confidence with the validation process. And so I want to welcome you all and thank you very much for your membership. I hope this is a really good and productive session for you and you can take a lot away from it. I will have any tools and templates and checklists available that relate to this session down in the links below this little session as well. So if you've got any questions, please by all means get in contact with me or discuss any concerns you might have during our one-to-one mentoring sessions. As members of the Validator community, and especially those that are founding members, then you will absolutely have access to that one-on-one mentoring session, which I can't wait to have a chat with you about any of those issues that you might have, whether it's this one or your time management hacks or any of the other sessions, depending on where you are in your journey of your membership. So this is one of many masterclasses that we're putting together, and I want to put this one together because of the experience I have with other people doing their validation, whether it's just discussing it as an audit with me when I was an auditor, but also in myself conducting validations within training organizations. Some people have done it before and some people haven't. So the steps I want to take you through, there will be 5 of them. So we're going to be looking at your current level of validation confidence, so where you're sitting with it, how you get more confidence or more self-confident about validation process, and to identify and take the prickly out of validation, and I'll talk to you about what I mean about prickly, and to ensure you share your sweet bits of the validation process with your team. How to sustain confidence as well. So once you become confident, you know how to keep being confident within the process. And then the last one is the you and the 3 M's, or the 3 M's and you. So if you think like then that's what we're going to have a look at, and I'll let you know a little bit more about that. So stay tuned. You can see me just in the little screen down the bottom, or if I turn it off for whatever reason because of what's going on in this crazy upside down world, it's really easy to be negative or feel negativity around compliance, and especially during the coronavirus and working from home, whether it's even possible for lots of people to do your validation process and connecting with industry. So let's have a look at some validation processes and getting more confident with it. So I hope you enjoy the session. Just going to pause. So let's make this little area a bit smaller. There we go, we're down there. All right, so here's hoping. Let's look at our 5 ways to stay confident with validation by looking at your current level of confidence. So those are the 5 areas that we spoke about of what we're going to have a look at today. So confidence. Now, confidence in validation, and we're going to look at this in a little bit later, is sometimes measured just with the confidence level of your sample. Now, what we're talking about here, or what I'm talking about with you today, is your confidence, how you feel about validation. And to work out your current confidence levels, you first have to identify how comfortable you feel about your knowledge of what it is to validate. And I'm not just talking about what unit or what sample or what industry. I'm talking about the whole concept and the process of validation. So a word of caution here: if you feel comfortable, that doesn't mean you're competent. So if you're feeling comfortable with validation, it doesn't mean you have it absolutely in the bag. So what the journey we need to take here is to be aware of your current situation, but then push yourself a little bit further to find out a little bit more, or to use your validation data in a different way. And so there's a lot of people out there who go, okay, well, the standards require me to do validation with this and that, and there you go, I've done it, which is quite useless for a lot of businesses. If you're only doing something for audit's sake, you're not getting the most out of this process. So getting out of your comfort zone means you need to be confident to find out what you don't know. Let's start with some questions and how easy it is. See how easy it is to answer them. I'm going to have some of this in the workbook, so you can follow along if you downloaded it before doing this session, or you can go back and revisit this. And okay, so the first question is from an ASQA self-assessment. And you may have already answered it before, but I want you to consider how easy it was to answer it the first time, as well as how easy it might be to answer it this time. So the question is, what practices, systems, and processes are in place in your organisation to meet assessment-specific standards? Now, some who have been in this industry for a while might find that really, really easy to just spurt out the different processes you have. Okay, I have the TAS, I have this, I have that. That's great. However, let's just break this question up just a little bit more. The first thing is a very general question, and you have to understand the breaking up of this question because it refers to assessment process, practice, and systems. So what does that actually mean? So let's understand this. What these are, then you have to understand what you have and then what you don't have of all of these practices. Okay, so to break these sessions up, I just have to get my little notes ready. Okay, so let's break up those terms. So what is a practice? And once we break them up, we'll actually have a look at the differences of them as well. So when we're talking about assessment practices, we're talking about a repeated activity. So this is a repeated activity that could assess for learning, an activity as learning assessment. So that's reflection and monitoring of your own progress, or of the student doing it of their own progress, or assessment of learning. So this is like summative assessment. So that's a repeated activity. It occurs on and on and on. This is a practice. We're practicing. It's like practicing music. It's practicing anything. You can practice it and go over it on a regular basis. If you're doing it for learning, so the repeated action of assessment itself is getting you to understand more and more of the learning knowledge of the skill or the application. Or it's as you learn, so you can do some things and then you check to see whether you've got an understanding of it. So that's a self-assessment. Or it can be the activity or the practice of checking that you have actually completed all the learning. So that's a summative assessment. So that's practice. Now let's look at a system. So a system is a set of controlled or ordered processes designed to ensure the assessment decisions made in relation to many are consistent. So a system is a grouping or a collection or a set of controlled and ordered processes, and they're designed to ensure that the decisions that are made are consistent. So this is where you can think of processes such as grievance and appeals process. The actual validation system itself has a whole heap of different processes. It might be gathering feedback, it might be sampling, it might be reviewing the assessment. That's a system. And then there's other reporting arrangement systems. So there's a variety associated with assessment across training providers. So the important thing here is that you have to be consistent in the processes that make up the system, and that you consider all the assessment standards themselves. So going back to that general question, it talks about practices and systems that meet specific assessment standards. So that's the two, practice and system. The third one is assessment processes. So these are a series of events that produce a result. So this is the actual process of assessment. So the gathering, the analysing, and the interpreting of evidence, the reflecting on findings that you have from an assessment process, making informed and consistent judgments to improve the student's learning. So that's another whole set of things to look at. So you have practice, the repeated activity, the system, which is everything together, including things like grievances outside of an assessment-specific task. And then you have the process, which is the task, the gathering of the evidence, the actual tasks that this student has to do. So the other thing to consider here is that all of that stuff should be noted in your training and assessment strategy. So a strategy should include all of those things. So if you answered the original question, and I'll just repeat it again, that what have you got in place for your assessment practice system and processes? If you just identified a training and assessment strategy, that's not going to be enough in detail of all of these different activities. Just consider at this point whether your confidence level would be better if you had your ability to answer this question in a picture. I find pictures really easy to use because they can describe a whole heap of things rather than a whole heap of words on a page. So if you could see your training and assessment strategy as a flow chart, and we have some examples of flow charts to meet the evidence for a student's journey on our website. So you can have a look at those and see what you think. Maybe you can make one for yourself just for your training and assessment strategy. We can do this again also in another session. So if you want me to have a look at this point for you, then just let me know. Send me an email. So consider here the student's journey and what you're validating and why you're validating it. There's no point, as I said before, if you're just going to validate because the standard said so and it's for audit. If you validated with your student's journey in mind, then you would consider a lot more of this question itself, of what these process, practice, and systems are, and what you have, and how you demonstrate that you have those, really easy for you and your team to understand. And then you have to work out, okay, now you know what you're required to have, what don't you have? What isn't already in place for your RTO? So that's the important part now, is the gaps. So in the workbook that comes with this session, there is going to be a little section here where you can identify what your current assessment practices is or are, you can list your current assessment processes and then list your current assessment systems as well. So, so you can now start to identify, okay, these are things you have. You can now focus really hard on the blockages, the leaks and the holes and the gaps that you have to fill. This is where confidence percentage needs to be measured. So it's really important to start thinking outside the box here regarding data that you might have available to you. What we've already discussed, you could probably, like I said, list them off. But now you have to work out, okay, how many of these do you need? And let's have a look at your actual compliance percentage for your assessment and for your trends and for your audits and for your validation. You have data related to processes of student feedback, industry feedback, staff satisfaction ratings. These are all not only saying we've got this system and these processes, but what you actually do with them. What are you gathering? What data have you got to make sure that you comply, and how well do you comply, or what is your confidence percentage? Okay, so there's some simple things as an example. Let's have a look at, say, the times of enrolment or the number of steps and the ease of that process, and then how they are reflected into your assessment system when assessments occur. Consider the accuracy of your enrolment data compared to your number of assessments that occur and when they occur for the completion, and do they all match up? This goes then towards your business goals. So confidence percentage needs to be measured, and you can measure how confident you are when it comes to validation by ensuring you have an understanding of all these different parts. Okay, so once you start measuring them, you start recording which ones you have, you can then identify the blockages. So again, in your workbook, you'll have a little table and it will be able to identify which process you have and whether you have a blockage, whether it's too complicated or it's holding things up in your processes and your system, or if you've got a hole, meaning it doesn't exist at all, but it should, or you've got something, but there's leaks in it because it's not giving you the outcome you want. So once all this information and data is put together, you can start becoming more confident that you have got what you need regarding compliance and validation. So I'll give you a moment to just quickly have a look at that, and before I go on to the next part. Okay, so once you've completed the table of your blockages, holes, and leaks against what you have for process, practice, and systems for validation, I want you to consider how you can get even more confident with this whole concept. There's a second question here. Now, the first one was based on an ASQA self-assessment for an RTO. It was very generic, and until you actually broke down what the terms were, you couldn't quite work out exactly what you have. And as soon as you don't know what you've got, your confidence levels dip down. So we want to keep it back up, find out where we're at. Okay, so the second question here to get you more confident is how many of these practices, systems, and processes are you actually measuring on a weekly, monthly, and a yearly basis? So we started off going, okay, where are we at? What have we got? Let's answer the question. You know the bits and pieces. You know where the bits and pieces don't work, aren't working, and have holes. Now you've sorted that out, you go, okay, I've got action that has to be done. The next thing you need to understand is, when are you measuring them? Because it's one thing to have something, it's another thing to make sure it continues to work. So I'm not saying you have to do measurement on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or a yearly basis for everything, but you do need to make sure that you have an understanding of what needs to be done when. So it's really important here that you maybe use a different guide, such as the Assessment Competency of VET 2013. I'll put the link down in the information as well. It notes that assessment process, as I'm going to read this because I want to be clear. It notes that assessment process as agreed steps, a series of steps a student takes within enrolment, assessment, recording, and reporting cycle, which best suits the needs of all stakeholders and is both efficient and cost effective. Okay, so this is working out your measuring part. You've got your process, your system, and your practices. When do you make sure that you're checking that everything is right? Thinking of the student's journey, thinking of enrolment, assessment, recording, and reporting cycle, and it has to suit stakeholders, so that's students, employers, staff, and industry if it's needed to be for a particular industry like workplace health and safety. And they have to be both effective and efficient. All right, so there's one more question to consider here. If you're measuring them already, so you go, yeah, okay, I've got this, we're checking them on a regular basis with internal audit once a month, or every week we review all our student assessments entered into a particular reporting structure. Okay, that's fabulous. Now let's just see how you're managing them. Because if you're putting them in and checking them, what are you doing when things don't go right? So I want you to dive deeper into your understanding of the measuring part and dive deeper into your understanding of managing the process so that you become more confident. Okay, so I want to give you an example. If I'm working for an RTO and I identify that there are 5 assessment processes and 1 whole system, but 10 practices inside that. Okay, so we do it 10 times, whether it be lots of assessment or across different multiple units of competency or whatever it happens to be. But we do 5 processes, 1 system, and 10 practices. So to ensure we capture the assessment data, you have to now establish how you manage them and measure them. So you can identify when you check or you monitor them. So each process could be measured and attached to compliance. So the number of assessment tools will have a certain number of completed sections right down to the nitty gritty, or you have assessment practices and 3 of them have to be completed by a certain time so that the second 2 can be done as other units of competency come up if it's a project, and you have to check that all of those are done within a certain period of time so that they're reported before funding is cut off. So there are measures and you need to manage those to make sure this ball just keeps on rolling. If you have a really good understanding of how the whole thing fits, then validation itself should be much easier for you to do. And then the more you have knowledge of your whole big picture within an RTO, the more confident you become with your validation process. So tip number 1, identify clearly what the practices, processes, and systems mean to you and your team. when you're looking at validation and assessment systems specifically. Number 2, get laser focused on your current data and the information sources you already have. So you might have a quality management system. It can tell you all those bits and pieces, how they all fit together. Think about doing it in a flowchart format so that it becomes even clearer to understand. Tip number 3 is identify how you would use your data and if it reflects both input and outcome of assessment practices, systems, and processes. So lots of people know the stuff going in, but they can't quite work out the going out and how it reflects the business goals. And the 4th one is, if you and your team don't know any of this information or where to find the data that links these with your business goals, then now is the time. You have to really understand the significance of validation with your business or your RTO outcome. It's one thing to be really clear in quality assessment with students, but if you've got no students coming in because you're not meeting your other business goals, then it's a bit pointless. So that's the first session done.